back to another episode of Fanatics Forum, where you get that real sports talk from the fans' perspective. And just really quick, can you share this video and leave a comment so I can keep giving you guys this content? So, for today's episode, I want to give my take on the Russell Wilson Sean Payton situation. And if you don't already know or you haven't been paying attention to sports lately, um, after the Broncos lost to the Patriots going into week 17, the Broncos, in stunning fashion, announced that they were going to bench Russell Wilson. This breaking news sent shockwaves throughout sports media, and everybody wondered why this decision was being made, especially since you don't bench a quarterback that you just recently signed to 5 years for $245 million altogether. But for me, I wasn't as surprised as everyone else because of all the issues that were going on. It's just now it's finally coming to the light. We saw for weeks that Russell Wilson was struggling, and it just looked like him and Sean Payton didn't have the best of relationships. And also, I hate how the media at first, especially since last year, all decided to get on Russell Wilson for his subpar play. And now everyone wants to come to his defense as if he isn't making too much money to not be playing at a high level. And I'm not going to say that Sean Payton isn't at fault for this whole situation, but the Broncos, in my opinion, made some very poor decisions lately, and now it's all coming to roost. For example, one of the biggest mistakes they made was giving Russell Wilson all that money when he's obviously on the decline. Seattle let him go for a reason. But what did the Broncos do? They said, hold my beer. Let's give him money because he has a Super Bowl ring. But again, if you really watch the Seattle Seahawks, you know the main reason they won the Super Bowl was because of the Legion of Boom, not because of Russell Wilson. They had a really good run game paired with an elite defense, and all they needed was for Russell Wilson not to turn over the ball in order to be successful. The problem with the Broncos is they don't have either of those, but thought Russell Wilson would carry the team in a tough division with KC and the Raiders. That alone was a big mistake. And also, they gave up a king's ransom for an older quarterback that needs a really good team around him to be successful. They gave up two first round picks, two second round picks, a fifth round pick, their tight end Noah Fant, their D tackle Shelby Harris, and their quarterback Drew Luck. Seattle, they obviously won that trade. So those are two major mistakes all in one that the Broncos made. Another mistake that they made was that they gave up a lot just to get Sean Payton as well. Sean Payton was still under contract with the Saints, even though he had walked away from coaching. So, in order for the Broncos to get him, they had to basically trade some picks away to get their head coach as well. So, in order for the Broncos to acquire Sean Payton, they gave the Saints a first round pick, a second round pick, and a third round pick just for a coach. And this doesn't include the King's ransom that they gave to get Russell Wilson. So currently, Denver is already in a bad position if things don't work out because they have no way of building a roster unless every draft pick they have left ends up being an amazing pick, like a future Hall of Famer, Pro Bowler, all that. But the likelihood of that happening is very low. So now that the situation is already bad, and on top of that, Sean Payton takes over as head coach in Denver, And it's basically his job to try to turn the franchise around when all of a sudden you have, and he has to go and make Russell Wilson. And I get it, he won a Super Bowl and the media loves him, but you're in a very, very difficult situation trying to turn that all around. And the problem is the Broncos, they only won 5 games last year, and Russell Wilson looked terrible during that stretch. So, with no draft picks, a declining quarterback, what did y'all expect Sean Payton to do? He's not a miracle worker. I know he's called the quarterback whisperer because he won a Super Bowl with Drew Brees, but remember, he walked away from football because things were going bad in New Orleans. I'm sorry to say this. If he was all, I don't get how people just assume he was all of a sudden going to just rebuild a team in Denver when he didn't want to go through a rebuild without Drew Brees and the Saints. It just doesn't make sense. He currently has an aging quarterback that is basically eating up all their cap space with no draft picks to really build a team. You can't really do much with that. And I just don't know how nobody saw this disaster coming from a mile away. The Broncos want to win now, but they mortgage their future for two guys that look like they don't have it anymore. Yes, Sean Payton can steady the ship eventually, but he knows himself that he doesn't have a long time to do that. And with Russell Wilson's contract and declining play, he probably thought to himself, it's better to just get rid of Russell altogether to at least buy himself some time to get through a season or two. Because if Russell continues to play bad under him, then Sean Payton is going to take all the heat. We've seen this time and time again. Coaches will buy themselves a couple more years by dropping the starting quarterback and saying they need to wholesale find another guy in free agency or draft a quarterback to develop. And I believe that Sean Payton made that calculus to preserve his career and his win record. And I get it. But again, the fact that nobody saw this coming is wild to me. Sean Payton and Russell Wilson are making way too much money for the Broncos to be failing. And you can point the fingers all you want, but that's the reality. Someone just has to go. It is what it is. And unfortunately, they decided to use Russell as a scapegoat. But now it's coming back to bite them because he came out and said that during the bye week, the Broncos had threatened to bench him if he didn't make changes to some of the terms of his contract. And for Russell Wilson, that was a smart PR move to get the media on his side. And it worked. But long term, I think it will bite him because if I'm in charge of an organization, I don't trust Russell Wilson because one, there was issues that were reported in Seattle that he was trying to get rid of the whole coaching staff. Two, the way he interacts with his teammates with having them sign NDAs allegedly. And three, just how he moves. It gives me politician vibes, and it's just not something I can co-sign with. And if you know, you know. But I'm sure a team will eventually give him an opportunity if he's released. But he needs to be on a team that is built to compete, or he'll just end his career as a has been. I don't agree with how the Broncos handle this whole situation, especially with trading your future for a coach and one player, and how during the fallout, they allegedly threatened Russ with benching him in order to get him to change his contract. I'm not mad at players for getting their money. But if a team is dumb enough to give him all that money when he isn't worth it, then that's on them. That's what you agreed to do, and the team needs to honor it. Yes, you can ask him to renegotiate his contract, but to threaten him is just out of bounds. If you can't get him to renegotiate, all you can do is trade him or cut him. But at the end of the day, you have to eat that dead money and move on. This has just been a roller coaster of nasty work all around. But we'll see how this all falls out in the end. Thank you so much for watching today's episode here at the Fanatics Forum, the sports podcast where you get that real sports talk from the fans' perspective. I'm your host, Mecca Mike, and don't forget to follow me on X, aka Twitter, Instagram, and subscribe to the YouTube channel so I can keep giving you this unfiltered content. Thank you again, and see you next time. I'm out.